Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Vero under the same at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Wednesday's edition of the dceu Daily. Well, Mathew Vaughan has really set the cat amongst the pigeons, really upsetting Snyderverse stans. And I'm a Snyderverse stan. I'm not really upset about what he said. I'm actually intrigued about what he said. What did he say? Shall we find out? I think we should. Mathew Vaughan still wants to make a colourful, fun Superman movie with Henry Cavill. The Kingsman filmmaker also tells The Wrap that following Man of Steel with Batman vs Superman was a mistake. And that is what's put the cat amongst the pigeons. 4 years after Kingsman director Mathew Vaughan was first eyed to direct a Man of Steel sequel for Warner Brothers and DC, the filmmaker tells The Wrap he's still keen on making a colourful Superman movie with Henry Cavill. In 2017, Vaughan surfaced as the top choice to direct a new Superman movie to follow in the footsteps of Zack Snyder's 2013 reboot Man of Steel. But then Justice League was released that same year to critical derision and disappointing box office, and Cavill has not reprised his Superman role since, which is an absolute disgrace, which we already know. Speaking with The Wrap in anticipation of the release of his World War I set prequel, The Kingsman, Vaughan revealed he pitched a version of a Superman movie before Warner Brothers made Man of Steel, and noted his continued desire to craft a colourful iteration of the DC superhero. The DC hero. I was desperate to do a Superman film. Desperate, Vaughan confessed. I pitched a big Superman movie before they made Man of Steel. I just got to work with Henry Cavill, which was lovely, on Argyle, and he's unbelievable in it. I still think there's room for a new Superman film, but a proper Superman film. Wow. Yeah, cat amongst the pigeons. A colourful, fun Superman movie, not a dark one. And there are people out there who passionately believe this. And you know what I say? I respect you for your opinion, and I understand where you're coming from. Even though I love Man of Steel and I love the extended Snyderverse universe, I still understand where you're coming from. Again, I'm going to lose more and more people. Because if you go with the narrative, people add you. If you don't, this is what happens, I'm afraid. So I'm willing for my really small, unsuccessful channel to be even more unsuccessful. Vaughan maintained that he and Cavill would go off and make a great Superman movie. And by the way, he's clearly spoken to Henry. This is what Henry wants. Make no mistake, this is the type of movie Henry wants to make as well. If given the opportunity, but confessed he doesn't even know who runs DC at the moment, the filmmaker went one more candidly, noting that he feels... Say that again. The filmmaker went one more, candidly noting that he feels it was a mistake to follow up Man of Steel with Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, which brought Superman and Ben Affleck's Batman together. I just thought it was a mistake putting the Batman vibe into the Superman world. That's interesting. That is very interesting, isn't it? He's saying that Superman and Batman don't mix. So can't you have them together? Ever? I mean, there's been The World's Finest, there's been so many comic books, there's the Justice League universe. So it's been done. It's been done in comics. So for me, that's a big leap. But I understand what he's saying about the darker tone not working with Superman. I just thought it was a mistake putting the Batman vibe into the Superman world, Vaughan said. I just think they're too separate. They're just not relatable in any way. In my mind, it should be fun. I mean, look, The Dark Knight was obviously different and it made sense. And it was brilliant as a film and as a comic. But Superman was always. I loved the Richard Donner Superman movie, and I think Wonder Woman worked because I think Wonder Woman was basically remaking Donner's Superman in a weird way. Yeah, I love Superman, And it's just great to hear those words from a creative rather than saying nobody knows what to do with Superman. I don't know what to do with Superman. Matt is saying, I know exactly what I want to do with Superman. Whether you think that's right or wrong, at least he has a definitive vision, which nobody at Warner Brothers, apart from, Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman of Color, is actually saying that. The filmmaker is no stranger to comics or superheroes, having directed the 60s set prequel X-Men First Class, a great a great comic book movie. And the R-rated Kick-Ass, again, it's a great movie. And while he's currently building out the Kingsman franchise with a planned third movie in the works and just wrapped an 80s throwback actioner for Apple called Argyle, it sounds like Vaughan isn't ready to give up on directing a Superman movie just yet. So, look, wow. This was like throwing a grenade onto social media yesterday. A lot of people are telling Mathew Vaughan to shut up, obviously from the Snyderverse fandom. I'm not ever going to tell anyone to shut up. Listen, do I want this? Let's be absolutely clear here. Do you think there's ever going to be a dark version of Superman again, in temper, in tone, in emotional element? Do you think they're ever going to allow that to happen again? No. No matter how much you scream, the next Superman movie we get, yes, the Superman of Color movie and the Val Zod one, that could be slightly darker because he's a darker character, not in himself. I'm talking about in the character's mythology. There's a lot of deep shit going on with that character, and we've spoken about that on this channel again. But, and also you have to ask the question, are Warner Brothers interested in a straight white male Superman? That's a very controversial thing to say, but considering they've just greenlit 2 Supermen of Color, it tells you that they're not really looking to do a straight white male movie for Superman in the near future. Superman and Lois is interesting because aesthetically, at times, it looks very Snyder. The story and the villain of Superman and Lois Season 1 was very similar to what Zod was doing in Man of Steel. So it's interesting, isn't it? Well, this guy is saying Superman must be, bright and fun. That's his opinion. Some people feel that Dark Superman is better Superman. They reckon it's a signifier of the times that we live in. What do I think? I think that I want to restore the Snyderverse, that I want to finish that story, and I want to finish watching that story. But after that, there's nothing wrong with someone like Matt coming in and giving us the bright, colourful, fun Superman that so many want. Because if you get the Snyderverse completed, then there's no reason why you shouldn't allow the people who want the bright, colourful Superman movie to have the bright, colourful Superman movie. Because once you say it's what I want or else, and nobody else can have what they want, then that's the very thing that happened to us when Snyder was driven away from the Snyderverse. Do you get what I'm saying? So very, very interesting thoughts from Mathew Vaughan. I'd actually like to see this. I'd like to see this, but also I want to see the Snyderverse completed. And as you can tell from my mixed feelings on this, it's a very complicated situation. Where are Warner Brothers right now? As we know, there's 2 Superman of Color projects coming. But do they want Henry to do another movie? Mathew Vaughan has already worked with Henry Cavill before. They're obviously talking all the time. They're clearly friends. Henry hasn't been shy in coming forward about his thoughts about a Superman movie. He also wants a bright and colourful movie. He also wants to continue from Man of Steel. So is Matt right? Was it a mistake to go with Batman vs Superman after Man of Steel? Do the worlds of Batman and Superman mix? It's interesting. Listen, because Snyder decided and Terrio decided to do this really dark Batman story, and it is, because Batman can actually be a bright, colourful, fun character as well. We've seen that in the comics sometimes, we've seen it in the 1960s series, but Tim Burton Christopher Nolan and now Matt Reeves are going down another direction. So that's interesting as well, isn't it? But in favour of Nolan, for example, he wasn't part of an extended universe. He was telling one story. That's why it worked. Snyder was tasked with igniting a DC extended universe franchise to compete with Marvel Studios. And this is what the problem was. So although I fought for Snyder to have his vision, and that's absolutely acceptable. And some people believe, that Snyder's way of doing things is the opposition of the MCU thing. And it gives the DC Extended Universe its own identity. And you're right, it does. But was it ever going to be an identity to compete with Marvel Studios? I don't think so. As much as I love it, now I want to put you in the position of the studio. So you're Warner Brothers, you're Kevin Sugihara, you're Ann Sarnoff, you're Jason Kilar, you're even Walter Hamada. What do you want to do? You want to make the studio as much money as possible, but you also want to entertain the audience. You want the audience happy, and you want the shareholders of Warner Brothers happy as well. So what do you do? What's going to make the most money? Mathew Vaughan's bright and colourful Superman. Comment down below and put your bias to one side. I'm playing devil's advocate. And I always get unfollowed when this happens, but fuck it. What do you think is going to be more successful? Mathew Vaughan's Superman or Man of Steel? Now it's interesting. Just under 700 million globally for Man of Steel is no mean feat. You see, Man of Steel wasn't really the problem. People criticised the destruction, but from the moment Superman broke Zod's neck, this franchise was fucked. I don't mind the breaking of Zod's neck. But at the end of the day, you saw the reaction from that. And already the reputation within the DCEU was something that people didn't like in general. And so from that moment, it was problematic. But it was still repairable to say, this is the one moment he kills and he never does it again. Cavill said something similar. But we haven't really seen that play out in the Snyderverse. Here's the problem. Man of Steel is a story by Christopher Nolan and David Goyer. Batman vs Superman is nothing to do with David Goyer. He wrote the original treatment of the screenplay for a Man of Steel sequel. It was binned. He and Nolan walked away. That's another moment that kind of sealed the fate of the DC Extended Universe. So Snyder continues and brings in Terrio, who's worked with Ben Affleck before. That's the reason Terrio's there, on the say-so of Ben Affleck, someone that Zack Snyder's never worked with before. It's interesting, isn't it? My complaint is, and I've made this complaint before, if we're talking about whether BVS was the right sequel for Man of Steel, and as much as I love the film, I have to go with Matt. Maybe it was the wrong film at the wrong time. But again, I ask you, whatever happened to the Codex? And this is what happens when you bin Nolan and Goyer. If Goyer actually wrote the sequel, whether it be BVS or a Man of Steel 2, the Codex would have been part of the story. You could have had Brainiac trying to take advantage of Superman having the Codex inside him. You know, bringing out these billions of Kryptonian life forms. What would that mean for the planet Earth? These beings with all these powers, what do you do with them, right? It would be an absolutely outstanding challenge for Superman himself. Whose side does he take? The Kryptonians from the Codex or the human beings? He's already chosen humanity over Krypton when he kills Zod and decides to stop him from destroying the Earth and making it a home for Krypton. That's the whole point when he says he's trying to protect his people. His people are inside of Superman. He wants to extract the Codex and have these people, these Kryptonians, living on planet Earth. That's the whole point of Man of Steel, right? You could have even gone even further with Man of Steel and made Zod successful So these life forms actually come out of Kal, right? And the Earth is full of Kryptonians to be continued in Man of Steel 2. I think that would have been an even better idea. So there's lots of different things you could have done with a Man of Steel sequel versus Batman versus Superman. There's reasons why people were upset with Batman versus Superman, and I kind of think mostly that people don't hate that movie. They hate the idea that Superman's being dragged down into this darker universe. Because Goya and Nolan leave Man of Steel, we've mentioned this so many times and I hate to be repetitive and boring, Welcome to the Planet, all smiles. And then we go from that to Superman being really somber and depressed. In a way, it doesn't make sense, and in a way, I get what Matt's trying to say here. So let me know in the comments down below, was it a mistake to go from Man of Steel to Batman versus Superman? If I'm honest, I love Batman versus Superman. It's one of the best comic book movies ever made as far as I'm concerned. But I think it made sense to give Superman his own movie without Batman and expand the Codex story. And I'll never understand why Zack Snyder didn't continue the Codex story himself. He clearly didn't like it, wasn't interested in it. That's one question, if I ever got the opportunity, I'd love to ask Zack. At the end of the video, I have a bit of a spoiler from the Black Adam test screening. It's a theory I've been talking about for quite a few episodes of the DCEU Daily, and it looks like I am right. But first, let's go a little bit deeper into the Batman producer's Dylan Clark's comment about the multiverse strategy and how the Batman isn't part of that. Warner Brothers has a multiverse where they're exploring different ways to use the character. We don't get involved in that. Now this is interesting. So Warner Brothers have a multiverse. They're using different ways of using the character, aka Batfleck and Michael Keaton, but there could be other versions in there as well. We don't get involved in that. Matt is interested in pushing this character to his emotional depths and shaking him to his core. Now, that is very, very exciting because Robert Pattinson has said in the Empire magazine as well, an excerpt we haven't talked about before on this show or on this channel, that the first cut he saw of the Batman really frightened him. So look, the Batman is a very interesting film, and never done before take on Batman. It's intriguing, but they're saying they're nothing to do with the multiverse strategy one little bit, and he wants to shake Batman to his core, which to me, as a storyteller myself, as a DC stan, as a Batman stan, is very exciting. So what they're making clear is that they're not part of the multiverse strategy. That would say they're not interested in being part of any crossovers within the multiverse strategy at this moment. Or are they? It's clear the Batman has nothing to do with nothing else but the Batman. Does that mean down the line it's impossible to have Pattinson as part of the central multiverse universe? I don't think so. There's definitely a trilogy here. And as I explained yesterday, this is the very reason to give Matt Reeves his own Earth 2. Because we've got to stop this now by allowing these auteur directors to have the run of the central universe. This is what went wrong. We need a central universe that can compete. Yes, compete with Marvel Studios. Whether you go along the same road as them or a different road, it doesn't matter. We must compete. The best way to compete is to have a shared, extended universe with its own stories and its own characters, of course, but that can cross over with each other. As I said at the end of the video, I'm going to explain this is exactly what's going to be happening in the central universe. So nobody should be upset about what Dylan Clark, the producer of the Batman, has actually said. This comes as no surprise. This was always going to be a standalone movie and a standalone franchise. But I'm not convinced that Robert Pattinson or other characters from this Earth 2 won't cross over. Now, another interesting question we can ask, if the Batman is Earth 2, what is Arrowverse? The Arrowverse and the DCEU have already met. It's obvious, right, that Arrowverse and the DC Extended Universe are not in the same Earth. So what number Earth is Arrowverse? Because in their world, they were Earth Prime, but really, there's other Earths. Earths like the DCEU, like the Batman Earth 2, right? So where does Arrowverse come into this? Maybe it's a conversation some of you are not interested in. I am, because when you're doing a multiverse strategy, when two Barry Allens, one Barry Allen from the DC Extended Universe and another Barry Allen from Arrowverse have already crossed over and met, and we know these two versions of the Flash are going to cross over and meet in the Flash movie as well, I am very, very interested in that conversation. Because make no mistake, Arrowverse is part of this multiverse strategy. It was the very first crossover we had between Ezra Miller's The Flash and Grant Gustin's The Flash. So it's happening, they're crossing over, they are part of this multiverse strategy, and Arrowverse will play a huge part in the Flash movie. Now, what's his name? I forgot the guy who runs Arrowverse, but he and Walter Hamada have been kind of talking for a long time and working together. They work together to bring both of these versions of the Flash on Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, for me personally, that was an exciting moment. Think about this. Don't you think that little crossover was just as exciting as Spider-Man No Way Home, having Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield? Do you think the buzz wasn't the same? It was. That morning I woke up, because obviously I'm in Europe, in Cyprus. Our time differences are, are massive. So I woke up, I go on Twitter, that's the first thing I do. And it was fucking trending. It was trending as high as Spider-Man No Way Home. So we have the characters and the opportunities to do exactly what Spider-Man No Way Home is doing. You can say, but they're just copying Marvel. So what? But crossovers didn't just start with Marvel, right? It's happened in TV shows of the past. I know it's a kind of a new phenomenon, but at the end of the day, if you want to be a child and say, well, it's copying the MCU, look, they've had the plan there for ages. In fact, think about this for a moment. Probably it was the MCU seeing that crossover that actually inspired them to do No Way Home. I don't know which idea came first, but it doesn't really matter. Wasn't you excited to see Ezra Miller and Grant Gustin cross over? I mean, come on. It's exciting, isn't it? Wasn't it as exciting as sitting in the cinema watching Toby, Andy and Tom together? Of course it was, and we're going to get more of that, which brings me to my next point. Let me read you a tweet from someone. No need to name them and be nasty, but this is such a shit take. Take a listen to this. Unfortunately, as much as people are saying Spider-Man No Way Home is going to kill the hype for The Flash, I think that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness will do it even more. I've heard some massive characters are returning for it, and it's releasing a couple of months before. That makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't really matter that Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness are bringing these, iconic characters back to Marvel live action. It doesn't hurt the Flash movie, because the Flash movie is doing something for DC. Do you think if Crisis came a month before the Flash movie, that means the Flash movie is going to flop? No, it's such a shit take. But he goes on. DC really need to win, and hopefully this will show them that they can't fuck around for years on end whilst their main competition is so focused on getting things done. Well, let's take a think about that, my friend. How many years did it take to get a Black Widow movie? You see where I'm going with this? The fans demanded an R-rated Black Widow movie, and they got a PG-13 family-friendly load of shit. Ever since we saw her in Iron Man 2, we all wanted an R-rated Black Widow movie. But sexist Marvel Studios didn't want to do that because they weren't sure how well it was going to do. But when it was fashionable to have female leads, they decided to do it. But wait, it gets worse, my Mr. Hot Take friend. They waited until they killed her off. So please don't tell me how perfect Marvel Studios are and how bad the DC Extended Universe is. Yes, Marvel Studios are very successful. Whip-de-fucking-do. I don't care, right? They are realigning the franchise at DC. They are doing things to excite audiences. So no, Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness cannot destroy The Flash. The only thing that can destroy the Flash movie is Andy Muschietti, Christina Hodson and Walter Hamada and Ann Sarnoff. They're the only people. If they have written and produced and made a bad movie, then it will flop. It will be nothing to do with anything Marvel Studios has done. If anything, the more you watch Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it's going to make you even more hyped up for the Flash movie, isn't it? I'll go back to my original point on this. That day you saw the two Flashes together. It was exciting. Get ready for more excitement. I believe in the Flash. I believe in Andy Muschietti. I think this is going to be a great movie. And that's why these assholes are saying it's in trouble, because that's what they want. And in life, we don't always get what we want.